Hi! It's me, Admiral Adorable, and I am not a film studies expert nor a practiced filmmaker, which is why I thought it'd be fun to break down one of my favorite scenes from one of my favorite films, The Lord of the Rings: Return of the King, with a completely untrained eye. I'll basically be spitballing why I think it's an effective scene, why it hits hard for me, and what I suspect some of the techniques are that they use to achieve that feeling. But this is a scene near the end of the third film, so heads up! Spoilers ahoy! There'll be spoilers in these here waters, arr! I don't know why pirate is my given persona for this spoiler warning, arr! So let's go. The scene in question is the pub scene from soon after the Fellowship has destroyed the ring and peace is returning to the land. For context, our four Hobbit friends, pure-hearted Frodo, loyalist of pals Samwise, mischievous but good-hearted Peregrine, and also mischievous but slightly more mature and ambitious Meriadoc, have just been lauded as major heroes in the now concluded battle against Sauron. So they traipse on back home to the Shire, where the other hobbits are pretty clueless about the goings-ons in the world at large, and so don't react much to their presence. The four have been through a lot. It was basically all their first times killing people, and they came close to death and saw hateful things beyond count.
They don't actually expect me to do any fighting. Do they?
We open on this shot, brought to you by the New Zealand tourism industry, by which I mean this just jaw-droppingly gorgeous shot of the pub, as viewed from the river at night. It's more or less a recreation of the shot from the first film before they set off on their very fun and safe adventure, so we feel that colossal sense of a passage through time. For us, it's been about 10 hours of film or whatever since then, which is a year and a few months for them, I think. Moving into the pub, Frodo, carrying everyone's drinks, nearly bumps into someone and quickly apologizes. It happens within a second of him coming into frame, so we kind of feel that jolt of having been walking, distracted, and noticing he almost slammed into someone. The feeling I get is that Frodo was a million miles away already. The three at the table are all just sort of sitting there, wordlessly, going through the motions as Frodo returns. As we join the four at the table, the hobbit Frodo nearly slammed into glances over at the four of them, who are neither red in the face nor laughing even slightly. It's a weird thing for a hobbit to see. Hobbits are meant to be loud and friendly, and here are these four just stewing at their table. A far cry from all the singing and dancing they were doing last time they were here, back in Fellowship. They all acknowledge Frodo coming back with the drinks, but then almost immediately they all break eye contact with one another. Frodo and Merry look away, Pippin is just looking at the table, and Samwise is looking at Frodo, I think, but it's hard to tell with Pippin in the way. Next we go to what I think is meant to be a POV shot from Frodo, looking at all the other patrons. This is probably my favorite bit of the whole thing. In Frodo's POV shot here, the voices are too crowded and indistinct to hear anyone. And essentially every person is obscured by something and we don't clearly get to see them. In this first portion, two people have their backs turned and they're standing in front of the third. When they move, the massive pumpkin on the table is still blocking this one, as is part of this pipe. We pan over to see some more people's backs and this one other hobbit obscured by a candlestick. Then, the one who shook their head at them as they came in is also blocked. To me it feels as though Frodo can't see any of these other hobbits face to face anymore because the experiences that these four shared set them apart too much. Elijah Wood, Sean Astin, Dominic Monaghan, and Billy Boyd are all doing some stupendous face acting in this scene. We return to Frodo, who's positioned all the way on the left side of the screen. The mix of this shot with the last one, where everyone was so far away, reinforces pretty clearly, I think, that with all Frodo and the others have experienced, they're never going to fit in with this crowd for real like they did at the beginning of Fellowship. There's distance and coldness there. He then turns to look across at his mates. None of them are awash with tears or anything, but their faces are kind of hollow and neutral. Sam quickly glances up at Frodo, then looks away. Merry kind of trades glances but doesn't really know where to look, and Pippin also can't really hold eye contact for any length of time. They're all just sort of sighing gloomily and looking wistfully around, feeling totally out of place in what used to be their home. After getting a quick view of all of them feeling this way, we pull back to all four of them together. Frodo forces a smile, Merry follows suit, and all four of them pick up their mugs. I imagine it's a conscious choice that none of them picks it up the same way, although I'm far from certain what it's trying to say. Merry and Frodo have their thumbs on top, but Merry's fingers are more crooked. Pippin holds the handle with his thumb also, and Sam doesn't even use the handle. I suppose this is to show that even though they don't need to speak to one another to communicate that they're all sort of feeling the same thing, they did all kind of find a unique path through their hardships, so they're not 100% on the same page even now. Am I reading in too much there, maybe? They all toast and drink, putting their mugs down one after the other. And Sam heaves a sigh that lines up with the score in a ridiculously satisfying way. The music is wonderful throughout, and it hits this kind of sad resolution around this point. Like if no one said or did anything, they might just sit here staring at their drinks until the end of time. But then, of course, something catches Sam's eye. We hear just the barest end of someone saying goodbye to Rosie, Sam's long-standing crush, as we cut to her. Still obscured by a few mugs, but much less so than everyone else we looked at. She glances over at Sam and the others for a moment. As we see the gears start to turn in Sam's head, the familiar Hobbiton music from the beginning of Fellowship starts to creep in. Sam has this little, hey, screw it, why not, look on his face as he takes a swig and heads up to say something. The other three are completely taken by surprise and confused as he goes. The camera, for what feels like the first time in the scene, actually starts panning and revolving around them instead of staying mostly still. There's life, there's movement, they're all looking around like, what the hell's he doing? Again, we have a nice moment where we get to see each of their reactions one by one. Pippin starts out with the same sort of weary expression, but as he realizes what Sam's going to do, his eyebrows raise in shock and amusement, and a genuine smile spreads across his face. We don't get to see Mary's initial reaction, but ever in an effort to make the others laugh, he turns around and gives a playful little whew to the other two, and Frodo also finds legitimate joy and laughter in all this, something he's been sorely lacking for some time now. That's where the scene ends, and it cuts to Sam and Rosie's wedding, so let's go back and look into some of those details I brought up. Firstly, I think it's amazing just how much emotion and how much variance they're able to fit in here with the score, shot composition, and face acting for a scene that's about 68 seconds long and has no dialogue between our major characters. Frodo says sorry to the person he almost bumps into, and Rosie and that other patron say goodnight to each other, and that's about all. It bears noting that The Lord of the Rings has a lot of allusions to the traumas experienced by war veterans and survivors, and it's not surprising that many people liken this scene to the emotions veterans feel when they return home from a war. In spite of everything, life has been moving on without them, and these four alone understand the true scale of the horrors the others endured. Tolkien himself was of course a war vet, and so it's easy to see that these four struggling to resume from where they left off is an honest and true-to-life experience, which makes it all the more moving. Quoth Frodo,
"How do you pick up the threads of an old life? How do you go on when in your heart you begin to understand there is no going back?"
But of course, even if there is no going back to those days for real, it seems to be worth a try, because that might be the only way to move on in any capacity. And so we have Sam essentially picking up from the last scene he had before he got dragged into all this, which was where he was pining for Rosie as they left the inn.
Good night, sweet maiden of the golden ale.
Boy, mind who you're sweet talking.
It feels to me like the other three are so shocked, not just because Sam has always been on the shy side where Rosie's concerned, but also because they're in disbelief that he's able to behave normally when they know he must be feeling the same as them. What this little series of reaction shots at the end says to me is that they're all starting to realize that even if this shared experience that will bind them forever was horrific and life-changing, it can't be processed all at once. It may not ever be moved past, and so the best of a bad situation would be to try and regain their old relationships and positions anyway. Sort of fake it till they make it, because clearly the world will leave them behind if they just grieve forever over their old selves. The scene is moving to me because they're all too traumatized and just plain exhausted to really put it all on the table and talk about it. And there's no reason to believe that that would help anyway, because they've all been through it and they know. No one recognizes them as heroes, they're just people who are back now. And it's not really an all the way through happy end of the scene, because although they're going to try their best to be happy and sort of just pretend that things are back to normal, there's a firm acknowledgement of what they've lost along the way. Anyone who's seen them knows that the Lord of the Rings films have an immense amount of detail and care put into them, so there's probably plenty I missed in this one scene alone, but that was a lot of fun. It's always a good time gushing about something you like, and I love this scene. Was there anything you picked up about the scene that I didn't say? And hey, while I'm at it, what's your favorite scene in Lord of the Rings? That's all, friends. Take care.
For sure it hit the yellow and went left. How is that?